You can tell it's real because it looks so fake.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Look Into It. Today, we're going to get heavy into politics, man. Heavy. We just had the midterms. The fuck happened there? My guest, stand-up comedian, political commentator, Dave Smith. How you doing, Dave?
I'm good, man, and I'm really happy to be with you, dude. I've been a huge fan of yours for years.
Oh, shit, for real? That's awesome, man. I was just listening to your last appearance on JRE, and man, we agree on probably 95% of everything you and Joe talked about, and it's refreshing. It's refreshing because, you know, Joe doesn't always have guests that are as aware as you, as awake as you. It was very pleasurable to listen to, knowing that there's a gazillion people out there. I mean, JRE is the biggest show ever, probably, and you guys are just fucking talking common sense back and forth. Common sense. I loved it, and I'm honored to for you to take time and do this show, this little itty bitty show. On this show, we could talk about anything, so we could speculate more, and get a little more into theories and stuff about like what is a real, and Joe wants to do this too. Joe, he asked you a couple of times, like, what do you think is behind this? Just incompetence? I mean, is it just money, or is there like some kind of nefarious plan going on? And what did you think? Okay. Did you watch the UFC? Are you a UFC fan?
Huge UFC fan, yes.
Did you watch it last night?
Oh, yeah, sure did.
Holy shit, right? I was on a plane coming back from Rochester, and I was just complaining to a friend of mine 3 days ago. I was saying, isn't it fucking insane that they finally get internet on fucking planes? They finally get it, and you order it on your phone, boom, you got internet, and they tell you, or they did tell you at least, it's always been this way. We can't stream. We don't have the streaming capability. But you can watch YouTube on a plane. But it goes on for like 2 or 3 seconds, then it freezes for 5, and then it goes on for 2 more seconds, and then it freezes. I'm like, they're close. That's close. You know what I mean? It'd be one thing if it didn't even stream, not even for a split second. Like, dude, we just don't have the technology, dog. But you do have the technology. If it's working at 2-second clips, you're so close. Can you just turn it up a little bit? Turn it up. You're so close. And then I got on the plane, and I'm like, man, I don't even want to order it, because I was on a plane from Rochester to Chicago, or was it Chicago? It was after Chicago. I had a layover in Chicago, but anyways, it doesn't matter. But I didn't want to order it. Not because it cost $75 motherfucking dollars, because I don't give a shit about that money. That ain't shit. But it's worth it. I mean, Israel Adesanya against fucking Pereira. Are you kidding me? But, and then the undercard fights were insane too. But I didn't want to order, why even bother ordering it? You can't even stream shit. I'll watch it. Is it worth it watching 2-second clips of this shit?
And nothing's more frustrating than like a really great fight where it's cutting out every 2 seconds.
Yes.
You know what I mean? We're like,
yes.
it just happened. Like it's painful.
But then I went ahead and said, fuck it. I watched the 2-second clips, and I ordered it. And then it was on United. And on United, it said, we now offer streaming. I'm like, oh my God, they figured it out. They turned it up a little bit.
And it worked?
Oh my God, it worked great. It froze 2 or 3 times, but I watched it. It was insane. I mean, that Israel Adesanya fight was fucking insane. That guy, like Pereira's left hook, holy shit. And he got saved by the bell after the second round. It's crazy.
I felt it hurt me on behalf of Adesanya, because man, he fought such a good fight. I mean, he really and you just know, I don't know, dude, this was a huge thing for him to take this fight. He could have kind of big dogged him and been like, no, he's got to win one more. He was in a position to do that against a guy who had beaten him twice in kickboxing and only really had one top 10 win, but he fucking took the fight. This dude fights 4 times a year, fights everyone who comes at him, and he was fighting so good. And
it was the perfect fight for him because Pereira comes forward and he's not afraid. I mean, there were times where Pereira, he definitely was hurt, and probably it took him a little bit to recover from that that brutality at the end of the second round, those 2 shots that he took.
Yep.
But, and it seemed like, they were going back and forth, it seemed like Pereira won 1 round and then Adesanya was kind of close. And at the end, I had it 2-2. I know DC said 3-1 Adesanya. I'm like, I don't know. I thought Pereira won 2 rounds, but the way he came out in that last round and just went in full destroy mode. Joe called it perfectly. Joe said, look, now he knows it's just 1 round left. He's going to unload everything. He doesn't have to pace himself.
Yep.
And that was exactly right. Because where did all that fatigue go? Where did that go? It looked like he was kind of tired or maybe,
I thought Joe and DC and them were almost getting a little ahead of themselves when they were saying after he got grounded, for that round and Izzy took, which is, by the way, it's just so interesting to see Izzy trying to take somebody down and then get the position and being on time. It's like, we've just never seen anything like, right. Pereira got the takedown, but then Izzy got the takedown in the next round and kept him down for a whole bunch. But they were like, oh, he's tired. This is going to drain him more than I was just kind of watching him. I was like, doesn't seem like I'm not seeing him huffing and puffing and stuff. And then, like you said, in the 5th round, he came out, he was just walking him down and he seemed about as fresh as you could see him in the 5th round of a championship fight. And, he caught him with some big shots. I also maybe I'm an asshole. I'm not a fighter. You're a guy, you've competed in jiu-jitsu and shit, and you train a lot of these fighters, but I do still have a little bit of the old school thing where I was like, Izzy wasn't quite out yet when he stopped him. I understand it's better to have an early stoppage than a late stoppage. These are human beings and you want to protect their careers and stuff and their health. But I did think Izzy was still kind of bobbing and weaving and shit. But
yeah,
man,
I totally agree with you. I totally agree with you. I thought it was stopped too early. Although that doesn't mean that, the clips you're showing here, they're kind of choppy. Is there a smoother version? Because it's super choppy. But yes, I totally agree with you. I've always been the kind of guy, the fight fan I'd rather see it go a little long than a little short. I'd rather have the guy get fucked up. I'm paying $75. I want to see. Well, we're not paying $75 for this to find out who the better guy is. We want to see fucking destruction. We're paying for violence. Please don't rob us of that violence. Although me saying I wish it would have gone on a little longer, doesn't mean that I thought Adesanya would come back. I would
probably not. Probably not.
He's probably done. But let us see it. And he wanted it. He wanted it to go longer too. At the post-fight conference, he said something like, I wish let's bring Mazzagatti back. Yeah.
Mazzagatti had some bad ones though, dude. There's also been fights before that I've seen where even as a fan, I'm like, please stop the fight. Don't let this go anymore. This guy's taken enough. There's been several fights like that.
Hey, if I didn't pay anything, if I got in free at some show, yes, stop it early. I don't care. But if I pay $75 goddamn dollars, I want to see some destruction.
I agree. But I remember and it wasn't 75 at the time, but I remember Cain Velasquez versus Junior Dos Santos in their rematch where I was like, okay, I got it. Cain won. Okay, stop. Please stop. Don't say.
I totally forgot how that was. Did that go on? Was that Mazzagatti?
Dude, Cain, I don't know if it was Mazzagatti. I don't remember, but Cain hit him with so much that at a certain point you were looking over in his corner and you were just like, do any of you care about him? Please throw the towel in. What is that? But
do you remember that?
That's fighting.
What year did you get into the UFC?
So I watched back in the day, in the very, very beginning, I watched it when I was I was a kid in 93. I was born in 83, so I must have been 10 or 11, when it first started. Okay. So I knew Hoist Gracie and them and but then I fell out of it for years and years.
Yeah, most people do. You know why?
Well, because it stopped. No one was talking about it anymore.
Well, you know why?
Because it got banned.
Yes, they got canceled. The UFC got fucking canceled.
They were original cancel culture.
Yes, they fucking got canceled. They got pulled off cable because boxing and Budweiser, I don't know exactly how it goes. Don't quote me on this. Allegedly, boxing saw the UFC as a threat and a pay-per-view threat. And John McCain,
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, how trustworthy is that guy? You know what I mean? How corrupt is that guy? God rest his soul. That dude was, I think he was a senator in Arizona. He was something in Arizona. And again, this is just me talking out my ass. There's like the cable from the cable companies runs through Arizona, and John McCain told the cable people, hey, listen, you better pull off the UFC or no more cable through Arizona, something like that. And
I remember John McCain saying it's human cockfighting, and he was leading a campaign against the UFC and shit.
Yes.
Yep.
So it went underground. So it went to satellite. And back then, DirecTV was running the satellite game, and only 7 million people had satellites, you know, so everybody knew somebody. You know, everybody knew one dude, your cousin's next door neighbor or something. So whenever UFC was coming, you had to find, somebody with a satellite. You had to find someone with a satellite. And that's why it went away. I mean, people thought people just thought it ended, but it never did. It just went underground. It never ended.
Right. So then I was, me and I don't know if you know Luis J. Gomez. He's a comedian. He's like one of my best friends. So me and him were we were roommates when we were like, I don't know, like 20 or something like that. Like we were young, and we were living in the same apartment. And I remember we went to, I don't know if it was like the Virgin Mega Store or Blockbuster or something like that, but we found these UFC DVDs. And we were like, oh shit, the fucking UFC. They're like still going on. Let's fucking buy a couple of these and watch them. And we started buying them and fucking just started falling in love with it. And this was like the like Tito Ortiz fighting Ken Shamrock era, like UFC
so
40s.
Right when the Fertittas bought the UFC and took over.
Yes. So it was and then we started searching it out, and we got way into it together. And then it seemed like shortly after we got way into it together, the Ultimate Fighter started, and then the whole thing fucking blew up. So it was this real cool thing. We almost found this thing, like it was like, oh, it was this little like niche thing that no one knew about, and then it just fucking blew up. And I very shortly after that just became kind of like a hardcore fan, like just watched everything I could get my hands on.
Pretty much every UFC, pretty much when they came by.
Yeah. I mean, at that point, we would go there. At that point, the what they used to call the dark ages were almost like unavailable. You couldn't find them anywhere, like online or anywhere else. But then eventually, that all fucking came out too. But we would just like watch all of it, get into all the. But at the very beginning, I remember we used to fast forward through the grappling shit because we didn't even understand it or know what was going on. And then after a while, we were like, oh no, that's like the coolest fucking shit. Is all this?
Yeah, the grappling. The UFC blew up because of the grappling, because of the jiu-jitsu, because, what is mixed martial arts? It's striking, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. We didn't have jiu-jitsu. We had plenty of striking. We always had boxing, and if the hardcore people were into kickboxing was always around. It just didn't do shit. Nobody watched it, but it was small. And then wrestling. There's always been wrestling, but they're never going to put wrestling on TV unless it's WWF or something. It has to be fake to be entertaining, because real wrestling, it doesn't have mass appeal. It's a very important fighting skill, and you could whoop some ass just with pure wrestling. Just picking dudes up and dumping them on their head. That's the best form of self-defense there is. You watch it on Instagram all the time. Dudes just get picked up, dumped on their head. They slam their head on the concrete, the pavement, and that's all she wrote. They might not come back from that. They're not going to be the same after that. So I respect wrestling. Just doesn't have a mass appeal. Same thing with kickboxing. Boxing, big, Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard, all that shit. We always had that. But what made the UFC different is like dudes were getting dragged to the ground and choked out. Nobody ever seen that. That's why it blew up. That's the difference between the UFC and all other combative sports is the jiu-jitsu. So that's the most, for me, that's what blew me away. Because I wrestled in high school a couple of years. I sucked. I was terrible. But I never considered wrestling as a form of self-defense. But even I always considered myself a big pussy growing up. And anytime I got in a fight, I double legged someone to the ground and just held them down until someone broke it up. And I did that not because I thought I was a badass, but I did it just to survive and just to make sure I didn't get hit. So I was like basically being a pussy. I would tackle someone, instead of standing and striking. And then when I saw Royce taking everyone down and choking them. I'm like, you could do that, and you're not considered a pussy. You're considered a savage. Oh my God, I love this. I got to get into this. And that was the beginning for me after seeing UFC 2. I missed UFC 1, but once I saw UFC 2 in 94, March of 94, boom, I'm like, I got to try that shit out. And then I never looked back. Do you remember Gary Goodrich versus Paul Herrera? Sam Tripoli and I are coming to your town. Catch us on the road doing Tinfoil Hat Comedy. Follow me on Instagram at Tinfoil Hat Comedy Night. Friday, December 2nd, we'll be in Colusa, California. Saturday, December 3rd, we'll be in Fresno. And February 24th, we'll be in Spokane, Washington. February 25th, we'll be in Tacoma, Washington. Go to samtripoli.com for more information and to buy your tickets. See you on the road.
One where he elbows the shit out of him.
Dude,
wrapped him up. Yeah, I remember it.
Speaking
Yeah.
of late stoppages and just
Yeah, he's like unconscious.
Dude, okay. You're a bad motherfucker. You know what's up.
That is huge. He clearly is way more powerful than Paul Herrera.
Look at these elbows.
Herrera shoots the leg.
And Herrera's a very good grappler here. Oh,
my elbows.
Oh my God, he's been unconscious for a while.
By Goodrich,
He
and
took a couple too many. Let's see that one more time. Just one more time. The whole thing.
Goodrich went.
I think he's out after 2.
Let's see how many extra he took. When would you stop it?
He's way more powerful than Paul Herrera.
When is the right
Quickly,
time to
Herrera
stop?
shoots the leg.
And Herrera's a very good grappler here. Oh,
Out.
Now.
Oh, we got this a lot more.
Damn, he got 3 more.
By Goodrich, and that is it.
You got.
Oh,
He was out.
man.
Ugh.
And then there's those late stoppages that the ref really can't do anything about. Find Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping. Dan Henderson versus Michael Bisping. And you'll see this a lot where 2 dudes are standing and the guy gets clipped and he's out on his way down. And the ref is like maybe 2-3 yards on the side. And as that guy's falling, the guy who threw the punch gets one more shot on the ground. Throws a flying hammer fist as they hit the ground. Here it is. This is a super late stoppage, but it's right here. Boom! That's it. You gotta go. Dude. Boom! He's out. Boom! Dude,
That's all right, dude.
Brutal knockouts ever.
You're gonna win the title in a few years, man. You'll be good.
Oh, here's another one. Tank Abbott versus John Matua. Tank Abbott.
yeah.
Do you remember that one?
The neck like falls against
That
the
was
cage
the first
like
time. That was before Instagram. And
Oh, no.
It was
I'm
the first
confusing.
time when there's a point
Yes.
where you get hit so much where it must be your body trying to scare the killer away. It goes into like an electrical state, and your arms like just get straight, and your legs get straight, and it looks like you're being electrocuted. I think
Remember,
that's your
and
body.
then Tank makes fun of him afterward.
That's it. We're gonna watch
like
that.
he
right
starts
now.
going,
Check this out. Oh, this is brutal.
And the Tua. Tank quickly
This is
takes
Samoan
the Tua
fire.
down. Tua back up. Tank lands a right hand.
oh.
But Tua back to his feet.
Dude.
Tua's taking some vicious shots to the
Dude,
head.
look at this right here.
That's it.
Boom! Another one. And look at his arms and
He
his
hit the
legs.
ground very hard.
Dude, what is that?
Lord.
That's your body trying to scare the killer away. Whoa.
Oh, that's it.
Boom! That last one.
Oh, that's it.
God damn.
Jesus Christ, UFC is fucking brutal, dude. Goddamn, it's
Yeah,
just
you
the
know your
best
shit,
sport.
dog. You know
Oh
your-
yeah. No, I'm a hardcore fan, man.
Oh,
but it's
dude.
fucking. But that's what's so compelling about fighting. It's like everybody, like, you're putting so much on the line in the most like primal sense, and then at the same time it's got like all these layers to it that are so amazing. It's like you're trying to play this very strategic like fucking game of chess, but at the same time you're combating just like the most basic fear that like you could be, number one, hurt really bad.
Yeah.
And number two, humiliated in front of everybody. You know what I mean?
Family,
Like in this,
your friends, everything.
yeah.
It's so
And, like,
risky.
And
But
like that,
but when you win and you knock a dude out, there's nothing like it. There's nothing
Yeah.
like it. And I've never knocked anybody out, or I've never done MMA. I just do jiu-jitsu fights. But when you win, man, just look at their faces, dude. When like Chuck Liddell would win, you'd be like, ah!
Yeah.
It's like you are the king of the world for that moment. Right there, you are the king of the world. You just risked your ass in front of the world, in front of millions and millions of people worldwide. You could have easily been taken out on a stretcher. Easily.
Yeah. And is it crazy, man? Like, there's something really interesting too to me about like all like even when you mentioned Chuck Liddell and like Anderson Silva and like just so anyone you could think of who is just like the guy who was for a period of time just this incredible, you know, fighter, untouchable. And these guys are it's almost like they're superhuman. Like they're just like they're like there's a time where you're just like, no one can fuck with this guy. And they get to have these like insane moments where they fuck other people up. And then, you know, it's like, unless you're Khabib or GSP and you get out like right on top, which is so rare. Like the only two examples are those guys. Yeah. Everyone else, then you go to a fucking point where you're like, oh shit, I just watched Chuck Liddell get knocked out for the 5th time. I thought that at one point this guy was invincible, and now you're watching him just like, and it's just, man, it's a tough game.
To everybody, unless you get out the game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with money too, because in order to become a UFC champion, one of the requirements is you have to really believe you should be the champion, whether you're delusional or not. And it doesn't mean you're going to be the champion just because you really believe it. It doesn't mean you are. But those that did become champion, they all had one thing in common. They knew they could be a champion. You know, you have to have that. You have to think you're the best. I'm the fucking best. I'm going to beat all these motherfuckers. I am the best. And, you know, 99.9999% of those people that think they're the best, they never make it. But the ones that do, they all did. You know, and then you get shut off once, twice. And I've been in the game for a very long time. I've trained a lot of UFC fighters. I used to work for the UFC for 8 years. For a while there, I knew what was going on. And I saw people come in, rise to the top, and then slowly, you know, they disappear. And except for Khabib and except for GSP, you're absolutely right.
Well, it's hard too. And some people like, look, man, like, you know, your guy, Tony Ferguson, right? Who's fucking like one of the best ever. And if you've only been a fan of UFC for the last 2 years, like if they're like a new fan who just came in, and they're always getting new fans, they just know him as a guy on a losing streak. But you're like, dude, if you've been a fan longer than that, you're like, no, this dude was like he was on the greatest winning streak in the history of the division, or close to it. You know what I mean? Just fucking up everybody. And then it's just like, but man, people got a short-term memory. And then all of a sudden everyone's like, I don't know, dude, I've seen him lose his last couple fights. And you're like, it's like, fuck, dude, it's just such a hard game, man. Such a hard game where even the absolute best of the best are gonna, it's just very, dude, you're gonna keep fighting these, I know he's your fucking guy, so I know it's like, it's emotional and shit when you talk about like someone who you love like that, but even then it's just so hard in that fight that he just had, his last fight before Nate Diaz against what's his name, it just fought last night, I'm blanking on his name, fought Tyson Poirier against Michael Chandler. He was fucking doing incredible in the fight. He was fucking him up and dropped him a couple times at the end. It was fine. But all anyone remembers is that one shot at the end that got through. It's just very tough, unforgiving game, man. Very unforgiving. Some
fighters, they look at it like a business. Like Rampage Jackson. He came in. He's an exception. That guy's not like most fighters mentally, because he came in. You know, he was a wrestler, and he had like, I used to commentate and do the pre-fight interviews for King of the Cage. It seems like another life. This was like in 2000. In 2000, I was the Mike Goldberg of King of the Cage.
Okay.
And I sucked, dude. I sucked. I shouldn't have been in there. The only reason I got the job is because I was a MMA encyclopedia at that point at my gym. I knew the producer of King of the Cage trained at my gym, and I started giving him private lessons. And when there's no pressure, you know, camera and a light, you know, and everyone dissecting your commentary, It's easy. I sound like I know what I'm talking about, you know? And he thought like, damn, you should be my commentator. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, you should be my commentator. So I got thrown into that. I should have never been a MMA commentator, but there was a time where I did like 15, 16 shows with them, but they brought in Quentin Rampage Jackson. He came through King of the Cage. He had like 2 fights in these small shows in Tennessee or something like that. And he came in and he didn't have that much confidence, man. He asked me right before the pre-fight interview, I was asking him a couple questions. This was just like, they just put a camera in front of me, go interview the fighters, you know? And I didn't, so I'm like, I'm trying to get some info from him before we go on camera. And he said, hey man, can you sponsor me? I said, sponsor you? He goes, yeah, man, you can't sponsor me? I'm like, I'm the commentator, man. And right there, I thought, okay, I'm not used to talking to guys with who don't really understand the game, the MMA game. I thought he was like, okay, this guy's going to be in and out real quick. But he ended up being a beast, and he ended up being a champion, a UFC champion, and kicking ass in Pride. And
so this was before he fought in Pride or any of that shit.
Yes, King of the Cage was right in the beginning asking me to sponsor him. So I just thought, okay, he doesn't know how the game runs. So man, he's just it's not gonna work out for him. That's what I thought. And he ended up doing great. He fought out Marvin Eastman. Do you remember him?
Oh yeah, I remember. Yep. Yeah.
He was like the one of the top fighters in King of the Cage at that point. And they kind of brought in Quentin Rampage Jackson to lose. They kind of brought him in. He's just an unknown guy, fighter from Tennessee, wrestled at like a junior college or something. He was, and it ended up being a real competitive match. And that was the beginning of Rampage Jackson, because Marvin Easton was supposed to kick his ass. And he did.
They fight? I think they fought in the UFC again. Maybe that was a rematch? I think they fought. I think that was
again. It was a rematch, but I don't remember how it went.
I think Quentin knocked him out in his first UFC fight. I might be wrong about that, but I think he fought him. I might be getting this wrong, but I think he had one fight before he knocked out Chuck Liddell. And I think it was Marvin Eastman, and he knocked him out.
You may be right. I forget.
That was, but yeah, Marvin Eastman. I remember him versus Vitor Belfort.
Oh yeah.
Belfort's fucking split him open real bad.
That Marvin Eastman Vitor Belfort fight was right after the whole Vitor's situation with his late sister. Remember that?
Oh God!
And after that match, and it was Marvin Eastman's a bad motherfucker. Make no mistake about it.
Sure.
But Vitor, when he won that, it was such a relief after all the shit he went through with his sister and what happened to her, man. It was such a, man, him and his mother must have gone through hell. So right after that fight, man, he started crying like he won the belt. He was like, Mama, we did it, Mama, Mommy, we did it. He was like, whoa. And to me, that was the most real emotional post-fight interview to this day. Your sister just got taken by some fucking scumbags. And he just looks into the camera and he's connecting to his mom. Man, I'll never forget that. That Mama, we did it, Mama. I actually put it in a song I wrote about jiu-jitsu, and it was all about the most emotional thing that ever came out of anybody's mouth in those post-fight interviews. It was insane. But back to Rampage. Once he realized, once he lost the belt, and once he realized, okay, he took a couple losses, he's really smart about it. He goes, you know what? I'm just going to make as much money as I can at this point. He goes, maybe I'm not the best. You know what I mean? I never really thought I was the best, but I'm going to make me some money. So he just kept training and just collecting the money instead of thinking, oh my God, I got to recapture my glory. And I'm sure he wanted to recapture his glory, but he was thinking of it like, if I fight, man, that's another 200 grand. That's another 500 grand or whatever. So, very few fighters had that mentality. Like, okay, I'm just going to stick with the fighting. Okay, maybe I'm not the best one, but maybe I could squeak out, 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 fights and just make that money.
Yeah, it's interesting because, obviously with fighting, it's the most on the line. And so the downside to having the mentality of let me try to regain my past glory and failing has the highest stakes. Like you literally could get brain damage. You can really hurt yourself, all this. But in general in life, I just think there's still something to that mindset. And I see, just like I compare it to like stand-up comedy, because that's like the world that I'm in. And I know there are these like comedians who like were huge and then fall off to not be like as huge as they were. And some of them I think are miserable because they fucking don't have that. You know what I mean? Like whatever. Like they're not, I'm not fucking selling out the Garden anymore. You know, I'm not like on this huge, but if you took a step back and you were like, dude, you're making like $3 million a year doing stand-up comedy.
Yeah.
You'll have a great life. Like, this is incredible. Like, I know you were making $40 million a year. Now you're making $3 million a year. But like, still, if you could have that perspective and just be like, dude, there's people like laying brick and I'm fucking just telling jokes to people and selling out wherever I go. Okay, I'm selling out theaters now and not arenas, but like, you know, and it's like, it's very, if you can have that, if you can kind of remove yourself from your ego in that way in life, I think you're much better off to like ride the wave and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, man. Back to Adesanya and Pereira. Great fight, maybe fight of the year, maybe fight of the century candidate, maybe. Great fight. But based on what I saw of their grappling, Pereira is not going to be able to survive Kazmat.
Well, this is the issue. I agree with you. And this was kind of the weird issue with, so they gave him his first fight in the UFC. And I can't even remember the guy's name, but the guy who he fought was an unranked guy. I think he was a jiu-jitsu guy, and he took him down for the first round and held him down. And he couldn't get back up. But then in the second round, they start the round over and he knocks him out with a flying knee.
Okay.
But I remember thinking that was an issue that he got taken down and held down for basically the full round. And then you're like, I don't know, how's he going to do against one of like a really good wrestler? And then he fought one other guy, won the fight, and then he fought Sean Strickland, who just stood with him. Yeah. And he knocked Sean Strickland out. He was a very tough fighter, but he knocked him out. But then you fight Israel Adesanya, who his offensive wrestling has never even been a thought for him. He's never fought anyone who he's trying to take down. You know what I mean? He's always his focus is always to make sure you have to stand with him. So now you go, okay, he's the champion, but not even Khamzat Chimaev. How the fuck is he going to stop him from taking him down? But even someone like Whitaker, how's he going to stop him from taking him down? How's he going to stop? There's other guys just like Brunson and other guys in the division who just like, I don't know, he hasn't exactly proven that he can handle anyone who's really going to be fighting to take him down like that, who's very good at it. So it makes the division a lot more interesting now. I mean, I don't know. Colby Covington could move up to that weight class and fight them. Who knows?
And the UFC legend making his combat jiu-jitsu debut, Uriah Faber. Which team will take home the money and the gold? Don't miss this historical night, Sunday, December 18th, live and exclusive on UFC Fight Pass.
It's very rare that someone gets into the UFC, gets a certain level of fame, and then then trains correctly in jiu-jitsu and gets really good in jiu-jitsu. That never happens. Once, in my experience, dude, I have a lot of experience in the UFC and how fighters train their jiu-jitsu. Once a fighter gets into the UFC, their jiu-jitsu is frozen. It's like frozen in time. Like they just don't train. Once you get fame, you don't train your jiu-jitsu right, because in jiu-jitsu, it's the only part of the big three disciplines that you have to constantly work at: striking, wrestling, jiu-jitsu. That's the big three. All right. And there's a bunch of forms of striking. There's a bunch of forms of takedowns. You could just be judo too. You don't have to be wrestling. Sure. Wrestling is the best. Muay Thai, boxing, Western kickboxing. And then jiu-jitsu, I mean, you could say catch wrestling too, I guess. But jiu-jitsu is the main form of grappling in the UFC. That's the main one. Wrestling is the main form of takedowns and takedown defense. And Muay Thai is probably Muay Thai, most people throw leg kicks like Muay Thai, and they throw knees.
Right.
So, in the striking world, there's no winners or losing in striking, really, because when you're training, you don't knock people out. You don't want to get knocked out. You're not trying to knock nobody out in training. There's really no clear winner or loser in training. You train kickboxing, and there's no winner or loser. It's not a competition. I'm sure people get intense in sparring and stuff, but there's rarely any knockouts. Yes, there are some exceptions. Shoot the box. They used to spar to knock each other out. Yes, but in general, worldwide, there are no winners or losers when you train striking. Same thing. You could say the same thing with wrestling. You can get taken down and everything, but it's not really like you really lost, because you could take down someone really good at jiu-jitsu and you just fucked up. So it's not really like a win. But in jiu-jitsu training, every day there's winners and losers. Every day you're getting tapped out, just like you would if it was a UFC fight, just like you would if it was a street fight. So there's winners and losers. And once you get famous, you don't want to lose while you're training on a daily basis to like some unknown blue belts or whatever. So UFC fighters, they start picking out their training partners, private training. And I haven't met a UFC fighter that trained their jiu-jitsu like if they were going to do Abu Dhabi, ADCC or some big tournament, So with that said, based on what I saw with Pereira's grappling, it's going to be impossible for him to survive on the ground with someone like Kazmat. It's just like an open micer doing a stand-up battle with Joe Rogan or Dave Chappelle.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like you're never going to get there. It's going to take too long. So Pereira's only hope, I think, at this point would be just work your takedown defense all day, every day. All day, every day, and guard retention, guard survival. That's his only hope. But even with that, even if he did that every day, by the time he hits Kazmat, his only shot is like one of those flying knees that he landed. Catching him. There's a chance catching him coming in. But man, if Kazmat gets him to the ground, it's not even going to last the rest of that round. It's not. There's such a big difference between.
Yeah, I mean, if Adesanya, if he couldn't get on Adesanya off him once he was down on the ground,
dude, Adesanya was
Khamzat
he was
is
doing,
gonna.
Yeah, he was doing the Khabib.
Yeah,
Israel was doing the Khabib, just riding him against the fence, and he couldn't stop it.
Holy shit, dude. It's going to be very, very tough. And, train your takedown defense all you want to. It's just you get to a place where Khamzat is a world-class wrestler who also has submissions.
World-class submissions too. His submissions are high level. He could bang with the top. Usually, for the most part, MMA, like UFC fighters, cannot bang with pure jiu-jitsu fighters in jiu-jitsu. In jiu-jitsu, it just ain't gonna happen.
Hamzat's a guy who will tap out black belts. You know what I mean?
He can hang. And there's some guys. There's a couple guys. Gilbert Burns, he could bang both.
Yes, sure.
Gary Tonin, he's high level at both. But 99.999% of UFC fighters, they could never hang like an ADCC. Those guys do grappling 24/7, and they're training. They're winning and losing every night. They're walking through the fire every night. And most UFC fighters do not walk through the fire, not the proper fire. They got some controlled fire going on. It's not the kind of fire you need to make a sword. You know what I mean? Like real fire. So yeah. Man, based on that, when I saw Houston Alexander, do you remember him? Houston Alexander, dude, was a fucking animal. That guy was just knocking the fuck out of people. He was launching people with his fists. So, and he got into the UFC, and he got some fame, and people were like fucking tripping on him and making all these predictions. And then we saw him on the ground, and it was obvious that he hadn't been training on the ground at all. Really, it was pretty obvious. So, and then all of a sudden, boom, that was it. You don't really hear about him no more. It wasn't like, he thought, okay, I got to get my jiu-jitsu together. And then he went and started training correctly for 2 years. He could have done that. He could have easily done that. But it's just so hard to do jiu-jitsu, to start jiu-jitsu training correctly after you're famous. You got to get that shit out before you're famous.
Right.
'Cause before you're famous, it doesn't hurt as much to get tapped out. But when you're famous, ooh, it hurts. Oh man, for a blue belt to tap out a famous UFC fighter, it hurts. It hurts. And that's the problem. That's the problem. Because in jiu-jitsu, every day, if you train correctly, there's winning and there's losing. And there's and when you get tapped out, that's a real, that's for real. So, anyways, what is going on with how right after the midterms, now there's this, everyone's turning on Trump, and then Trump's talking shit on DeSantis. What the fuck is going on with that? This is shocking shit.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. And,
right after the midterms, it was almost like Trump was planning on it. Like after the midterms, for some reason, maybe him and DeSantis they're doing some 5D chess. I don't know what's going on. Maybe maybe it's like just something, because there's a theory that they're pretending just to draw out the rhinos, just to see who's really down for Trump and who's just pretending. What do you think?
It's possible. I mean, I guess I wouldn't completely rule anything out. I think that what's more likely is that this is just a battle that was inevitable in a way. And now it's what happened basically in the midterms. And there's a lot of potential reasons for why this is, but the Republicans did really bad. I mean, it was a really poor result for the Republicans considering how the state of the country, and that traditionally speaking, America's like the whole way America's fucking system works is that basically you have a uniparty, the duopoly as it's called sometimes, where there's these two parties, but you're going in the same direction no matter which party you elect in. But it's kind of like it bounces back and forth between the two parties. And so it gives Americans the impression that we're going like almost if we were here and we're bouncing back and forth from here to here. But really, you're kind of going in this straight line and you're just bouncing back and forth along the straight line. Like the plan marches on no matter which party gets in power. But when one party fucks up, the other party gets a shot. And then when that party fucks up, then they throw it back to the other party. And this is kind of the brilliance of the two-party system versus the one-party dictatorship, where, okay, when you have a dictator, if the people are that upset, they overthrow the government. But when you have two parties, if the people are that upset, they go to the other party. And then and the oligarchs, the powerful people own both parties. So this is the sophistication of the American system. But what was supposed to happen here by this pattern of how America works is that the Republicans were supposed to fucking have a red wave, and they didn't.
Wasn't it? The fake news is saying the fake news is going, that wasn't much of a red wave. That was like a maroon wave or something. So if the fake news is saying that, then I think, oh, we had a red wave. And then you look into it, and I don't know if this is true, but if this is true, there was a red wave. Did we take the House?
The Republicans, yes. But by a very slim majority. Okay. And the Senate is completely up in the air. It's not clear at all what's going to happen there.
Was Donald Trump 216 and 19?
I don't know the exact numbers. That's
the number I keep hearing.
So I'll tell you, I think that
sounds like
I'll tell you this. The fake news is completely full of shit. But I think that they're not completely wrong. They're bragging about this, but the truth is that the Republicans picked up more House and Senate seats under Barack Obama's midterms than they did under Joe Biden's. And they picked up more under Bill Clinton's midterms than they did under Joe Biden's. And the fact that inflation is so bad and coming off the COVID insanity and the flirting with nuclear war and the teaching your 4-year-old boy that he's a girl, and the just incompetence of Joe Biden. I would have thought that this was supposed to be, I would have thought the Republicans would be more dominant. So yes, you are right that the Republicans won overall in the midterm elections, but there's still kind of this feeling that like it was supposed to be a dominant victory. And meanwhile, then DeSantis had an unbelievably dominant victory. And not only dominant, but he literally single-handedly flipped a swing state into being like a deep red state. And so he went from winning by like the slimmest of margins in 2018 to become governor to winning by like 20 points and flipping counties left and right. Miami-Dade, this big blue county, is now a red county. It's like pretty incredible. And so I think there's a lot of things going on here. A lot of people who are kind of the like the Trump base were going, well, maybe this guy's our guy now. And then also a lot of people who were the anti-Trump people are going, ooh, someone else besides Trump. So he's getting that support from those guys too. And so now the interesting question is like, who's DeSantis really going to be? Who's he going to try to run as if he does run? Is he going to try to go like, I'm the new Trump? Or is he going to try to like get the anti-Trump base? It's very interesting. I'm not exactly sure where all of this is going to go. I got to say, I personally think that DeSantis, he has a more compelling story in a way, because he really did keep his state freer than just about any other place in the world through 2020 and 2021.
South Dakota.
Well, yes, South Dakota beats him. I said just about. Yes, South Dakota, that is true. They had no lockdowns, no mask mandates, no mandates of any kind. They were the freest state in America throughout all of the COVID shit. But after them, I think Florida's number 2.
I want that upper body clench. That's what I'm going after. With the underhook, looking for double underhooks. That's a juicy ass clench. Perfect double underhooks. You're on your side. Boom. That's all perfect. That's huge. In my game, for me, I'm like, I got this motherfucker. First fight in Abu Dhabi, 2003, against Gustavo Dantas. I got right in and got perfect double underhooks. I'm like, oh my God, I had him in a lockdown, perfect double underhook, really quick. He just gave it to me. And I was just sitting there going, oh my God, he just gave it to me. That was just off a front headlock, 100%. Push into him. You want to smash him and then jump on that leg. You want to rush them so they don't have so they're off balance. You jump on that leg, you hook that leg, you're gonna take their back or put them in the truck. Either one. Does that make sense? There was a couple other states that didn't lock down, right? Like Montana. Like, what about Montana?
Montana did fairly well, but I think they did. I'd have to double check on that. I think they had some restrictions, but regardless, Florida is right up there with the tops. I don't know exactly where you put them. South Dakota is number 1. South Dakota had nothing. Like, they didn't do any of it.
Okay. Now, you know what a rhino is?
Sure. Describe Republican in name only. Does
that so? We agree that the left, most of the left, with all that the crazy shit, I call them the loony left, because I grew up, I thought I was I never voted or anything. I'm not a registered Democrat or Republican or anything. But growing up, I wanted to be a rock star. I moved to Hollywood. I wanted to party. I want to get drunk, smoke weed. I DJ'd at a strip club. There's no way I would ever consider myself anything remotely close to a Republican. I thought Republican wearing suits and they go to church and they want the family values. I don't want a family. I don't want kids. I just want to party and think about myself. I just want to fuck kids. I want to think about me, And but now, now I have a kid and I'm married, so I look at things way differently now. A lot of the conservative values
Yeah.
You know,
I can really relate to that.
Yeah, I'm like,
look,
family
I feel the
is
same way.
everything. Family is everything, and Hollywood is fucking evil, and Pelosi and all those Schumer and Nadler. I'm like, I don't want anything to do with those people. Fuck those people.
Well,
so they're pushing me. They're pushing me to the conservative side. You know what I mean? Just because of their lunacy. Their lunacy. So we got the loony left, and a rhino is someone that's an undercover is a Republican in name only, meaning they're voting with the loony left, correct?
Yeah, I think that's basically the idea, right? And I, by the way, I can really
It's like they're
relate to
undercover,
that too.
right? It's
Yes.
like they send them in and they infiltrate. It's like infiltration.
Well,
correct?
I think they're, in a way, the term rhino is kind of silly because I think those are really who the Republicans are. I think this is the Democrats and Republicans, as far as I see it, are kind of like, it's like a professional wrestling thing, or like a Harlem Globetrotters, type deal, where it's this scripted thing, and the Democrats are playing the good guys and the Republicans are playing the bad guys, and the bad guys' job is to lose. And so this is what the rhinos are basically there to pretend to be putting up a good fight, and to then ultimately lose and give the progressive Democrats inch by inch by inch by inch. And of course, the ones who the corporate press would like to portray as the bad guys are the ones who are talking about like limited government and family values and all these things that are actually really great, but they do it in the worst possible way, and they do it in order to lose to the progressives. So this is kind of the game. Now, I can really relate to a lot of what you said. I mean, I was really I was a fucking degenerate animal, like stand-up comic on the road and, just like that. And then I got married and had kids. And then you start to kind of re-question some of these things. And you almost fall into this weird place where it's like, look, I'm not like some evangelical Christian. I don't want to like lecture other people about how they live their lives. And I don't care. I'm cool with gay people, and I'm cool with atheists, and I'm cool with like everybody. But I also think that in general, society should probably like promote things like families and parents staying together to raise their kids, and like being good to your neighbor, and like these kind of things that you realize, like once you have little kids, as I do, you're like, well, I don't know. I don't want them growing up in a world of like everyone promoting degeneracy. I want them growing up in a world of people promoting like good, healthy things. And so much of what we see in our culture today is just, I don't know. I don't think it makes me like crazy to say that I don't like the idea that my daughter, who's 4 years old now, is like, okay, it's like, it's weird. You have like a baby, and then you have a toddler, and then you start getting to this age where you're like, oh shit, I got to send her to like preschool. And then she's got to go like enter the world at some point. And you go, I don't like the idea that there's like Instagram and internet porn and like all of these things that all like, but by the time she's hanging out with other 13-year-olds, they're all going to have been seeing all of this stuff. I just don't like that. And I'd rather live in a culture that I didn't have that. And so there's just this very weird kind of dynamic where you want more people who are promoting something more positive than that.
Now, so do you believe all Republican government officials are rhinos, or are there some Republicans that really do are really like Marjorie Taylor Greene? What do you think about it? You think she's a rhino, or is she legit?
I don't know about her. I've seen like a few things out of her where she seemed really goofy. And then I've seen a few things out of her where I was like, she's saying some real shit in that one.
Sense.
So yeah, like, I don't know. And I find it, I always have, my spidey sense always goes off with any politician who's being put forward as being like, well, this is the real deal, or this is the person who's doing that. And I don't exactly know. I know that there is when there's such a reaction from the establishment against somebody who doesn't even really have that high of a national profile, like then I go, I think there's a reason why they're so against that person. And I don't think it's the reason that they're telling you, like I think it's because they can't control that person.
Yes. So if you had to vote, who would you rather have as the president of the United States, Nancy Pelosi or Marjorie Taylor Greene?
Oh, I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene in a second. Okay. I don't know that I'd vote for her. But if just asking me who I would rather have, if it's just those two, gun to my head, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Okay.
But because at least I would roll the dice on is she legit or not? Whereas I know what Nancy Pelosi is, and I know Nancy Pelosi is just like a blood-soaked monster. So, but I also, I don't necessarily agree with like voting for, look, honestly, I don't think we're going to vote our way out of this. I think what we need in this country and what we need as a human species is kind of like a mass awakening. I think that's much more important. Isn't
that what's kind of happening right now?
Yeah, well, I'm optimistic about that. I think that look, man, I think what we're doing right now, I think obviously what Rogan does on like as the biggest level of it, but what so many people are doing online with all of these things, I think we're in a brave new world where human beings are able to communicate in ways that they never were before. I think a lot of people focus on the downsides of that, and there are some for sure. Everything is a trade-off. Everything has its costs and its benefits, but overall, I think that this is necessary, and that the potential good far outweighs the potential bad. And I think that one of the things that I kind of like about what happened in the midterms is that I think a lot of Republican voters have realized that maybe we can't win over the country, but we can win over this area, and that I think that that's really where hopefully the future goes, is more like toward, I think government is best if it's local and as small as possible and as accountable to its local population as possible. I think that you can affect your town a lot more than you can your city or your state or your country. And I'd rather see more things done at a much more local level. So, I think that I like, in a way, I like what Donald Trump did in terms of just making people question how corrupt the whole system is, more than I like anything he actually did as president.
You don't like the stuff he did as president?
There's a few things.
Like he went in there and unplugged all that shit that they had going. I mean, like the Paris Accord thing. You don't believe in climate change, do you?
No, of course not. But and yeah, sure, it was good that he pulled out of the Paris Accord.
That's huge. That takes big balls. That shows that's some evidence that he's not deep state right there. Right?
No, I don't think Donald Trump is deep state. I don't think he was. And I think the way the deep state reacted against him, they exposed themselves so much that I don't think they would have done that if he was one of the, I don't think that would have been part of the plan if he was working for them.
Leave that alone. Leave that alone. We don't even have to go there. If he was deep state, go in there and pretend you're going to, you're America first and all that. But if that was the plan, if he was like a deep state trick, they would say, stay away from the climate change. We need that shit, dog. That's
he never would have, there never even would have been talk of like the CIA versus him or anything.
Yes.
I don't believe that.
John Brennan got dragged into this. He's the one who executive produced, allegedly, the whole Russian hoax, Russiagate, right?
Well, he was a huge part of it for sure.
Isn't that fucking crazy? Isn't that fucking crazy? For all your 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu merchandise, please visit 10thplanetjj.com/shop. We also got a Look Into It t-shirt that just dropped. Thank you very much for your support. The FBI, Department of Justice, they're all fucking day one. They try to shove it up his ass. They try to shove Russia up his ass.
It's the craziest. If COVID didn't happen, it's the craziest thing in my lifetime. It's the duly elected president of the United States was framed for treason by his own government.
By the intelligence agency.
Yes.
John Brennan. That fucking dude.
who's also, by the way, I mean, was like legitimately committed treason. John Brennan and people, if they're interested in looking this up, go Google Operation Timber Sycamore. John Brennan and Barack Obama and John Kerry, they funded Al-Qaeda in Syria and ISIS in Syria. I mean, literally the definition of treason. They gave aid and comfort to the enemy in a time of war. So, and yes, so that's the guy you're dealing with there. So now Trump pulling out of the Paris Accord, I think was good, but also the Paris Accord was like a non-binding, it was kind of like a symbolic thing. And it's good that he pulled out of it, but
he brought attention to it. He's put a spotlight.
Sure,
he put a spotlight on the scam, the money laundering scam that is climate change. It's a money laundering scam.
My buddy Scott Horton, who's like one of the most brilliant people in the country. He's the managing editor at antiwar.com. And he's an author and just great. He always says like, he goes, which I love this. He goes, well, the thing is this, is that the country needed Ron Paul, but we got Donald Trump. And so Donald Trump was like just famous enough and rich enough and brash enough and aggressive enough to just fuck everybody up. And he was, I genuinely believe he was against these people. And really, after he campaigned that way, they all turned on him enough, and he was enough of a fighter that he was like, oh, fuck you, and he was against them. But the problem is that Donald Trump kept all of the worst aspects of the government going. And I think he just
maybe it was to expose it. They said, why didn't he fire Fauci? Look at Fauci now. There's a documentary coming out on him. There's a book written about him. He's being exposed.
I guess, but I mean, I don't know. I think how we get into the realm of like excuse making. I mean, look, he kept Fauci on through all of 2020 as the head epidemiologist of the government. And man, he really should have fucking fired him. And even worse than that, dude, he conducted the war in Yemen for all 4 years of his administration. And just like hundreds of thousands of people there died, mostly very elderly people and little kids, because he was selling.
How come I heard while Trump was president, there was no wars?
Well, what they say is there were no new wars under Trump, which is technically true.
So that war was already going on?
It was already going on. Obama started it, but he kept it going his entire administration.
Well, who knows how much of a hand he had in that? I mean, maybe it was just like...
I mean, he bragged about the big weapons packages that he was selling to the Saudis, who were the ones who were like directly conducting the war. And he did say he wanted to end the war in Afghanistan, but first he surged and sent in more troops. And then eventually he did negotiate a deal to leave with the Taliban that Joe Biden fucked up once he got in. So he did do that. He said he wanted to end the war in Syria, but he never actually did. And he said, so like he was a mixed bag in a lot of ways. But I think that really Donald Trump was, I think he was incapable of really dealing with the system the way he needed to. Now, I'm not saying like I would be able to do that any better.
It's kind of fucking hard when you got the FBI, CIA, and Department of Justice up your motherfucking ass.
It makes it a lot harder.
Come on, man.
Sure.
Come on.
That's for sure.
Imagine trying to get anything done. Imagine trying to get anything done when they're on your ass. And John Brennan, imagine, I don't know how you feel about, there's so many conspiracy theories, and I don't know what you feel about chemtrails, for instance, but chemtrails, like the conspiracy theory behind chemtrails has always been that the CIA is spraying metallic particles in the air, that was the craziest conspiracy theory. Like, I don't know how many times Joe Rogan was like, dude, that's insane. You're fucking an idiot. That's insane. You're fucking crazy. Like, you really think the CIA is spraying metallic particles in the sky? For what? What are they planning to do? Don't you think they breathe the air? So that's the insane conspiracy theory. Let me change the subject just a little bit, just to explain something. But suppose you're living with your mom, right? You're a loser. You're living with your mom and your dad, and they're getting on you about getting a job. You're 38 years old. You still don't have a fucking job, and you're living in the basement, and they're getting on your ass. Your mom and dad, they're threatening to kick you out. They're fed up with you. And then you get this job. You finally get a job, and then they're so happy. They can't believe you finally get this job. They're so happy. But real quick, you can't take it, so you quit. And you don't tell your parents though, because they're so happy. You don't know how to break it to them. You don't say shit.
Right.
But eventually you have to tell them. Eventually, because little things start popping up, or little things here and there, like, weren't you supposed to be at work? And the little things, eventually they're gonna find out. So the smart thing to do, if you're a douchebag, right, would be to start telling your parents, like, you quit 6 months ago, but now you start telling them, and I'm having a real hard time at work. My boss is like, he's racist, and he says all this crazy shit, and I think he's a child. Like, you just start making shit up just to prep them. You already quit, but now you got to prep them that you're gonna quit. So when you finally tell them that you quit, you're gonna tell them you barely, like, you just quit. When you quit a long time ago, but you're not going to tell them, like, you know what? I want to be honest with you. I quit 6 months ago or 2 years ago. You're going to tell them you just quit if you're a scumbag, right? And you prep them. You prep them like, I'm thinking about quitting. I think I'm going to quit. He's such an asshole, Mom. I can't take it no more. And then she goes, okay, quit. And you can find another job. And then that would be a smart douchebag way to deal with that situation. So now back to chemtrails. This is John Brennan. Mm-hmm. People are finding out about chemtrails. This is 2016. Now he's going to say that, we're going to start looking into because it's chemtrails, geoengineering, stratospheric aerosol injections. There's a lot of different names for it. This is John Brennan, 2016 at the Council on Foreign Relations. He's saying, hey, you know what? I'm very interested in geoengineering, stratospheric aerosol injections. We're gonna look into that. We're gonna start doing that shit. Now you're gonna start doing it. We've been saying that the whole time. What are the odds that the crazy conspiracy theory that the CIA is spraying metallic particles in the sky? What are the odds that it's actually the theory that's gonna save the planet from global warming? Look, he's in charge of global warming now. Check this out.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do. An SAI program could limit global temperature increases, reducing some risks associated with higher temperatures and providing the world economy additional time to transition from fossil fuels. This process is also relatively inexpensive. The National Research Council estimates that a fully deployed SAI program would cost about $10 billion yearly. As promising as it may be, moving forward on SAI would also raise a number of challenges for our government and for the international community. On the technical side, greenhouse gas emission reductions would still have to accompany SAI to address other climate change effects, such as ocean acidification, because SAI alone would not remove greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. On the geopolitical side,
check this out.
The technology's potential to alter weather patterns and benefit certain regions of the world at the expense of other regions could trigger sharp opposition by some nations. Others might seize on SAI's benefits and back away from their commitment to carbon dioxide reductions. And as with other breakthrough technologies, global norms and standards are lacking to guide the deployment and implementation of SAI and other geoengineering initiatives. Now, I could go on and on and on and on about the things that fascinate me.
Wait,
now,
please
now
do.
Is that guy,
go on.
Did your bullshit meter just explode?
Yeah, but I also, I really wonder. It's so bizarre, dude. So I've never seen that clip before, but it's so bizarre. It's almost like sometimes you go like, are you just trying? Like, are you trying to convince like like people to go nuts with conspiracies about this, because it's so bananas that you would publicly say this thing that no one is even seriously like, no like politicians are seriously like talking about implementing, and you're like, hey, I'm here at the Council on Foreign Relations, the CIA director, let me just start talking about how chemtrails and shit that like you must know has been a raging like conspiracy. And I don't say this in like a derogatory term, I just mean like
he knows it's coming out though. He knows, and you know what, Bill
so it's
Gates
almost like, are you
about
prepping people to like accept this, or are you almost like trying to stoke, sometimes I do think they try to stoke conspiracies. Like I think that they do this with aliens a lot, where they'll try to be like kind of like, oh look man, we've got evidence that there's aliens everywhere and the only footage that's ever been captured of it is by the Pentagon. Weird coincidence, but anyway guys, let's talk about this and not talk about all the shit that we're doing. So I don't even know what exactly this means, but it's funny to hear him say, but even doing this, we'd still need all the controls of the economy that the climate change regime wants. Like we'd still need to fucking like implement all of these policies. I do think, I'll say this, I think, and I've been predicting this since March of 2020, I think that all of this COVID shit is just going to transition into climate change stuff, and that this is going to be the next excuse for why we have to like have complete government control over everything, and why we have to like strip everyone of all their freedoms, because the climate is changing and everyone's about to die unless we do this. It's not a pandemic, but it's the new global emergency, and this is what it's all going to go toward.
Project Veritas caught CNN producers saying exactly that.
Yes.
You've seen that, right?
This was after I had been saying this for a little bit. I was ahead of that one. That was like a few months later where they caught them saying that they were like, look, the COVID shit just isn't sticking anymore. We're going to move into the climate change. That's going to be the next thing. And I think that's true. I think it's right. I think that's basically where this is all going. And you can see it now. Even, dude, look, this they're saying this winter, fucking in Germany, firewood is going to be the new gold, because they have completely fucking like they've denuclearized their energy system. They've gone to this complete green energy system, and the natural gas they were just getting from Russia ain't coming in anymore because of all the fucking sanctions on Russia and that Nord Stream pipeline that just got blown up. And this is like first world countries who are energy insecure, like not sure that they're going to be able to turn the lights on through the winter. You see out in California, there's these roaming blackouts. This is real shit.
Yeah. Do you ever notice the chemtrails above your head?
I've honestly, dude, like I don't even really know much about this whole like theory of chemtrails.
They've been, the reason it's a conspiracy theory because it's right over your head, and they're spraying this all over the fucking place. You think that picture right there, you think that's natural right there? Boom, right there.
It does look a little strange.
I mean, dude, they're all over the place. That's not natural. That they are spraying metallic particles, just like John Brennan said they were gonna do, but they've already done it. Remember the analogy? Eventually you got to come clean with this shit. And you were saying that you haven't heard any politicians talking about spraying the sky just like that, but they do talk about it. Like Bill Gates been talking about this. Bill Gates is talking about how they're going to spray that just like this. Most of these pictures are like 15, 20 years old. They've been doing this. This weather modification, stratospheric aerosol injections, geoengineering, AKA chemtrails. They're doing it. And then you know what HARP is?
No, I'm not.
HARP is I mean, this is all admitted. I mean, I don't have any videos off the top of my head, but HARP is an installation in Alaska. It's run by the military, and can you show pictures of HARP real quick? HARP it's like it shoots this. It's a giant field of electro towers that shoot and they shoot all this wattage into the ionosphere. Say, this is real shit. I mean, we could find plenty of video of Air Force personnel talking about what they're doing. They're controlling the weather, like all the weird weather, like, oh my God, it's climate change. They're doing it. They're controlling the weather. This is all real. This HARP, look into that, dog. I mean, this is all real shit. All the crazy people that have been talking about HARP and chemtrails for the last 25, 30 years. Now, 2016, they admit that they're going to fucking do it. And there's a lot of documentaries on the Science Channel and all those bullshit ass deep state channels where they're talking about, they have documentaries saying, ooh, maybe in the future to combat global warming, we can spray with planes. We could spray metallic particles, aluminum, barium, strontium to reflect the sun and reverse the greenhouse effects. There's documentaries talking about how it's a theory, how they're gonna do it. Like, dude, you guys been doing it, but they have to come out with this to prepare people. So now go, why are they doing that? Why is John Brennan doing that? Because now, since 2016, what is that? 6 years have passed. Now, when you see this shit in the sky and you show people, look, chemtrails, they go, dude, it's stratospheric aerosol injections. They've been talking about this. It's for global warming.
Right.
That's the trick. That's the psychological operation. They already said, they go, dude, we know about that. Before you were saying I was crazy. Now you're saying, oh, dude, they're just reversing the greenhouse effects. Stop tripping. They admit it. It's not a secret. It's not a conspiracy theory. They're talking about it. They're admitting it. You're like, bitch, you thought I was crazy this whole fucking time.
Well, it is weird. It is weird how the effect of that, and you see it even with like, just like COVID shit, like, where you'll say something that somebody will say is crazy, and then it could just be 6 months later, and it's just like, oh, everyone accepts this. And then you still don't get any credit for saying it when you said it, and there's no apology for everyone who said you were crazy. What's going on. Like, it's a very weird human thing that they can just go kind of like move on and go, yeah, no, everyone knows that now.
Yes, just like
you were still crazy when you were saying that, but everyone knows that now.
Oh, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Same thing with the fake moon missions. I don't know if you believe we landed on the moon, but we did not land on the moon. That was all fake. That was the biggest COVID of all time. I've
seen some things. Someone was showing me the other day. Fuck, I can't remember where I saw this, but where they showed this picture, I guess it was from the 60s, of a real televised event where they said, this is what space looks like. And they show like the pictures of it, and you're like, dude, this is the fakest looking shit. Like, to see it today in 2022, you're like, oh, dude, this is so obviously fake. I can't believe they ever. But you could kind of see where, like, in 1965 or something, you'd go, oh yeah, I guess I would have bought that. I guess if I was watching that, I would have seen that. At first, you're crazy. You're crazy for thinking they faked that. But now, the people that said you were crazy, they said, oh yeah, they had to fake it because, we were in a space race with Russia, so yeah. Oh, we knew that. It's not a secret. Yeah, they faked it. Now that's what people are saying now. Like, motherfucker, you were saying I was crazy before. Now you're saying, oh yeah, like, oh yeah. Oh, we were in a space race with Russia. And that's why they had to do it. I mean, the moon landings were so fake. It's so bad. It's so fucking bad. You know how much NASA gets paid a year? No, what is it? $19 billion a year, dog. 19. Look at that. Look at that picture right there. Do you think that's real? You think that picture of Earth with the moon right there, you think that's real? They're passing that off as real. They're not saying that's fake. That's a Japanese. Yeah, and the one behind me too. They're saying this is real. Like, that's real. Like, that's an actual real picture. Like, they had a camera on the moon and they took that picture. Yeah, that's pretty rough. Yeah, I mean, look at that. Come on, that is so fake. It's so, all these pictures of Earth from space, they're all CGI, and NASA admits it. They can't say it's real. The only one they say is real, there's two that they say is real. The one from the moon, they go, oh, only two are real. The one we took from the moon during the moon missions. But wait a minute, that was fake, so that's fake too. And then there's this other one from 2002, they got one more. But when you look at that one looks like all the other fake ones. So there's all these debates all over the internet, like the shape of the world. Are we a ball or are we level? And in not one of these debates, they're going on every day. Nobody that's pro ball can ever brings up these pictures. Say, look, it's a ball. Look at these pictures. Like, look, it's a picture. You would just think they can't bring up these pictures because they're all fake.
They bring up other shit. Oh, look at the shadows here. We're a ball because the shadow wouldn't go like this and blah, blah, blah. It's all bull. They can never bring up the pictures. And there's so many fake pictures. There's so many fake ones, but they can never use those pictures in a debate because they know it's CGI because NASA admits they're CGI. They admit it. They're not saying they're real. They're saying, we take strips of data and it's a composite. It's all bullshit.
I do have to, I have to plead kind of like ignorance about a lot of this shit. Like I really have not done deep dives into any of this. I know friends of mine have been like real into like the moon landing being fake and shit like that. And I certainly I think they've raised like several like very good points. My thing is basically that I think that it's healthy to always have a tremendous amount of skepticism about everything that government and government agencies tell you. And I know like what fucking sociopathic liars they are about so many different things that I'm very open to the possibility that they're lying to us about other things that I've never even thought about that they're lying to us about. And like, that's just, the things that our government has planned to do, has actually done, how much they lie the American people into war after war after war, what they've planned. I mean, this is like, things like that. It's like the most serious thing you could lie to people about. And so I think it's good that people are very skeptical about everything that they're told by the official sources. But I don't know. I find all this shit fascinating. That's very healthy.
That's a very healthy way to think. Now back to politics.
Sure.
Who do you think is like 100% rhino? Like if you had like Mitt Romney, right?
The worst of the worst. Yeah. Absolute worst.
And by rhino, again, that would mean that he's probably on the deep state side. A rhino would be deep state, right? Because who's going to go undercover?
Mitt Romney is 100% a tool of the establishment.
Yes.
No question about it.
So you believe that there is like a deep state, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even think I don't think that's even like a belief. Like, I think that's just like factually speaking, there is a secretive, shadow, permanent, unelected government.
And they usually have so there's a deep state. So they usually have the same agenda, right? Like a new world order type agenda.
Well, I think sometimes there are competing agendas within the deep state, right? So I think that there are times where the CIA and the FBI have had beefs. It's like anything else. There's still human beings involved in it. So there are times where they're at war with each other. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yes, certainly there are agendas that the kind of the secretive government has. And usually, and I think that they have a lot more power than the government that we're aware of has. So I think that whether it's the Federal Reserve, the central bank, the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, other organizations we probably don't even know about, I think have a lot more power than, say, like a senator that we're aware of, or a president or a congressman or something like that.
So you would say, we're just speculating, but you would say the deep state they all have, if you're part of the deep state, you all have the same general agenda, and they fight against each other because they're arguing which is the best route to achieve this agenda, right? So they're arguing no,
sure,
if we do that,
sure. I think
right?
generally that's true. I do think that there's probably times where they might even have different agendas. I mean, I know that there's been, so for instance, the General Petraeus was the head of the CIA, and he was brought down by, I think it was the FBI. So there seemed like there was a little bit of a beef between the head of the CIA and the head of the FBI, and so there are these warring factions like that. But in the same way that look, there might be two mafia bosses that go to war, but they're both still the mafia. They're both still criminals.
100%,
and they both
100%.
probably have the same overall agenda, which is that like we want to keep this crime racket going. So like, yeah, there is a lot of that though, where there's like, I think I basically think that's correct. I think that they have agendas that they're all on board with. And I also think that there's probably a lot of very powerful people who are behind the funding of all of it.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you ever notice that on certain YouTube videos they'll put labels on it, like if it's like a like a 9/11 inside job video, they're gonna put a label on it. You know what I mean?
Well,
do you notice that? Do you notice that?
I've gotten a few of those labels myself, talking about COVID and the vaccine or climate change.
Doesn't it seem like
that.
YouTube will put labels on shit that's actually the truth, right? Like why put a label on something that's part of the New World Order agenda, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've had videos of mine that have labels on them where it's like, I don't think any of you could point to a single thing I've said in this and actually argue with me that this is wrong. But yeah. And also I think that there's like my view is that basically the internet and tech platforms and social media and shit were essentially the Achilles heel of the kind of the establishment or the global hegemony or New World Order or whatever you want to call it. And I think that is something that they've really cracked down on over the last few years because of that, because they realized like, oh shit, this is going to be a big problem for us if people are just allowed to say whatever they want to say and can get as big as they want to get. And so there's been a real effort to crack down on that. More and more, by the way, has come out over the last few years about how the government has been directly involved in a lot of the tech censorship. And that it's not just that these companies like YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all of them were like, oh, we just feel like censoring people. And then it was actually that like the White House and Congress and all of them were putting enormous pressure on them to take specific people off their platforms.
You know how people say there's people that non-conspiracy theorists will say the New World Order is like some crazy conspiracy theory. There's no New World Order. There's no agenda for a New World Order. Obviously, New World Order is for real, right?
Well, I mean, it's the New World Order. The funny thing is that it didn't originate as a term from conspiracy theorists. It originated as a term from politicians. Like George H.W. Bush himself declared a New World Order when the Soviet Union collapsed. And this was his term that he used for saying, hey, look, the Soviet Union has collapsed. And this is what they called, Charles Kraudenhammer called the unipolar moment, where now that there were kind of like these competing like dominant forces in the Soviet Union and the United States of America. The Soviet Union collapsed and they went, look, this is our moment where we can rule the world. And that's what they meant by it. I mean, they call it like the liberal, rules-based order, or they call it global hegemony or the unipolar moment or the New World Order, but call it whatever you want to. What it means is an attempt to rule the world and to kind of like make the world in the image that these powerful people want it to. And again, it's not just George H.W. Bush. Of course, Henry Kissinger used the term over and over again, and lots of these other powerful people. So
Bill Clinton, Obama, Joe Biden, they all did. Do you know that video you're talking about of George Bush making that speech? George Bush Sr. making the speech, talking about it's time for a New World Order. Do you know that it's got a label? They labeled that video. Look at the label. The label right there. The label, the New World Order is a conspiracy theory which hypothesizes a secretly emerging totalitarian world government. They put that label on a video. Play the video now. Now, this is the video.
We have these founders.
And
come on, man. They got a label on that. It says New World Order.
I guess. I guess they say when they say it's like secret. I guess it's not that much of a secret if the president of the United States is saying it, and it's interesting because like this is kind of how they put it forward, that it's like, well, it's okay, so it's a rules-based order, to ensure the peace. And I guess in a way they can justify that to themselves. So look, in the 20th century, we had 2 world wars that were just, it's like whatever anyone ever might say is like the craziest shit that you believe in or I believe in or anyone like that. You know what the craziest shit ever is having 2 world wars where tens of millions of people are slaughtered over like nothing. And then the lines are drawn up basically the same as they were before the world wars. Like all these people just fucking died and killed each other for nothing, And so their claim is almost like that they go, well, look, what's better is if we rule the entire world and then there's nothing to have world wars over. This has always been the justification of the New World Order, is that, well, if we have control of the entire thing, then we won't have these wars against each other. But George H.W. Bush himself as soon as he presided over the collapse of the Soviet Union. And so basically he started on this path toward hegemony in Europe. But then what did he do? He went right to war with Saddam Hussein in Iraq. That war basically has gone on since, like we've basically been at war in Iraq since for 30 fucking years or whatever. And then the wars in Afghanistan and Syria and Libya and Yemen and Somalia and Pakistan and like all these. And so even by their own justification, they're like, yeah, you just kind of moved the killing over to like the Middle East and Northern Africa. And it's like, and so look, it's like any other scheme. It's like, yeah, this was their justification. But what really ended up happening was it was just a lot of powerful people made a lot of money and killed a whole bunch of people and took their shit.
Yeah, man. It's I used as much of a conspiracy theorist that I am, I wouldn't think that like big pharma or like doctors would like you would trust them, right? You would trust doctors, shit. I knew big pharma, was not to be trusted, but they do make some medicine that people take. Everybody take. Your mom takes, I take, whatever you do. So you're like, okay, they wouldn't. These pills are for whatever reason they pass tests and they go through trials. Right. So they're not. If it kills you or if it fucks you up, it was a mistake because they're running through trials and maybe you're just that 1 in a million that gets caught. But after the scamdemic, it's pretty damn clear they don't give a fuck what you die of from any of these medications. Like every medication that Big Pharma produces has side effects. Well, and the thing is that, and I think this is something that both like conspiracy theorists, and again, I don't use this term in a negative sense because like the term conspiracy theorist was intentionally turned into like a negative when there's actually nothing wrong with it. There are lots of conspiracies and there's nothing wrong with having theories about what the conspiracies are. But both the people who believe in conspiracies and the people who believe in like no conspiracies and that you're crazy to believe in conspiracies, everyone can be a victim of falling into binaries, like where it's always easier to be a binary thinker, like to think like everyone is completely wrong or everyone is completely good and this institution is completely wrong or completely good. And the truth is that it's always somewhere in between, but that doesn't mean that some institutions aren't way more bad than they are good. And so I actually think even someone like George H.W. Bush, I mean, look, he was a monster and did like a lot of bad, but he also did sign some really good like nuclear proliferation agreements with the Soviet Union as they were collapsing. And look, Big Pharma has produced some medicines that help very much, but overall, Viagra. Well, there you go. Yeah. Which, you know what?
Which I think was supposed to be a heart pill, but
I think it was a blood pressure pill.
It was like a blood pressure pill, and then it just didn't work for that, and all the tests were like, but it's not evident, but they all have rock hard boners.
That may be the best medicine ever created.
but they're also like more, they just, as they get bigger and bigger, they're just so driven by, it's like as any organization gets bigger and bigger, it's more driven by its own power, its own profit and things like that than it is by any attachment, in the same way that like, look, if you got like a family of 5, you love your 5 kids to death. But if you got a family of 500,000, you're kind of removed from what any one of your kids would be. And when you got a family of 500 million, it's like, I don't know, and the bigger they get, they just get so removed from any like actual ramification that their policy has on someone else, and it just becomes more and more about the numbers on the paper. And look, I mean, in terms of how corrupt they can get, we're all human beings. And how corrupt can human beings get when things go really bad? Well, I don't know. Take a look at the 20th century and even the 21st century and see the most corrupt examples of what human beings are capable of doing. And it's really dark. When human beings stop looking at other people as people and start looking at them as just like pawns on a chessboard, we can go to some really dark places.
Yes. What do you think's going on with climate change? What's the real? Why is the deep state and all the demons? Why are they all pushing climate change so fucking hard? 100%, they can care less about fucking climate.
Well, right.
It's for something else.
Well, I think it's for control, for
Money
sure.
laundering?
At least that. Well, I mean. Yeah, I mean, it's all a big honeypot, right?
Isn't it about
scheme.
creating a problem and then you have a reason to write these $1 trillion bills and then everyone just takes their piece? Isn't that what it's really all about?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's about power and about money and about all of those things. I think that you have a society now where the rise of secularism is very new. Right. So the idea that we live in a society where people are not religious fundamentalists, where that might seem very normal to us, is really, if you zoom out and look at the scope of human history, that's a very new thing. People really, for most of human history, were very religious. And religious in the sense, not like in the way your friend tells you, oh, I'm Christian or I'm Jewish or I'm a Muslim or something like that. I mean, religious in the sense where like they believed that things in their day-to-day life were like a reflection of their relationship with their God. Like they really believed that very passionately. And we don't really have that for the most part in our society anymore. And so it's almost like they're creating a secular religion. Well, here's what you need to believe is that everything you do in your day-to-day life is affecting this greater thing, which is the climate, the earth, the everything. It's a way to kind of like brainwash like secular progressives into a religion. And the religion is, they believe it's like scientism. Like they believe that they're like, if you just talk to your average person, like the average, like say like some 21-year-old on a college campus who completely believes in the climate change shit, they believe in a religion, but they're convinced that they're following the science. They're convinced that they're like, no, this is real. The same way a religious person is convinced that what they're saying is real, but they're convinced because it's like, no, you don't even understand. This is what the scientists have figured out. And then if you push them on it at all, they have no answers for that. They've just heard it from someone and they're taking it as an article of faith. But so it's like this scientific religion, and that it's a perfect way to trap people that aren't like if you had a very religious society, how do you trap them? Well, you just take over the church and that's it. Now you got them. But when you have a secular society, you have to almost like find a thing to trap them in that. And what the upside of climate change for these people is that it's like the perfect scheme to grant someone complete control over you. Well, look, man, this is something. Look, Eddie, this isn't you needing to clean up your yard. This is the world. This is so much bigger than you that you can't possibly solve this problem. You have to turn over all of your power and authority and autonomy to the collective so that we can all solve this problem together. And what happens with that is that, well, someone will have to be up at the top of the collective making all of the decisions, and you just stop driving your car and stop eating hamburgers or whatever. And, that's that. So there's a huge, there's a huge benefit to rulers to have people believe all of this. And so I think that's what's driving it.
I think that's probably always been part of the playbook. Like there's like how to rule an empire. And I have this video somewhere of this lady giving a speech somewhere, and she's reading something about some think tank, like a trilateral commission or council on foreign relations, someone, it's one of those think tanks or whatever you would call them, just making a list of this is how you control people. You got to scare them with shit they can't see. Viruses. You got to have like that's just part of fucking ruling an empire. You got to have pandemics. You got to have environmental shit. Like you're protecting only shit they can protect you from. They're only going to scare you. They're going to scare you to death, but with only shit they can protect you from. Meteors, environment, the climate, viruses, terrorism, just in nuclear war, all that shit. And that's how you rule nations. That's how you rule people. It's constantly keep them in fear with those things. And it's pretty, it's quite simple that a scared person is so easy to control. When someone's scared, like they're going to die and someone's going to kill them, man, it's really easy to control them. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, sure. And you would the truth is that most people will make tremendous sacrifices if they really feel like they're under a serious threat.
Yes.
And and all of us, because that's what's logical to do. I would make a lot of sacrifices if I thought my family was in real danger. I would give up a lot of my liberty to keep my family safe. And yeah, go ahead.
Did you ever see that South Park episode? You ever watch South Park?
Oh yeah, of course.
You ever see that episode where Cartman tells Butters that it's the end of the world and he has to stay in the basement? Yes. Remember that? He has to stay in the basement? That was all fear.
Right. Well,
that's
right.
One of the greatest episodes of all fucking time.
Well, if it's what's interesting about this shit is like the best way, like even what you were saying with those old like NASA pictures, the best way to expose this shit in a way is to just look at the old shit.
Yes.
And to see how, because it's also obvious that it's bullshit when you look back at it. The problem is that we really do, as a people have a short memory span and we we forget about these things. And it's not like if you expose some shit from, 2005, that's bullshit. It just doesn't really register with people as much as the thing they're saying right now. They're like, yeah, that was bullshit. But Ukraine, we really got to fight a war in Ukraine. It's
they never
so
figured
whatever
it out.
the new. But if you look back at even just which I guess is a long time ago, but doesn't feel like a long time ago to me. But the things Dick Cheney used to say right after 9/11. I mean, he would literally say, he goes, it's not a matter of if, but when we're going to have another 9/11. And it's not and this is going to happen. And it could be here. It could be the Brooklyn Bridge. It could be this. It could be that. And this was all just out of his ass talking, just complete bullshit, Yeah. None of it came true, but it was just to keep you in this perpetual state of shit. At any moment, anything could be blowing up. And every time I look at a plane in the sky, I got to think, is that plane about to hit this fucking building? And anytime, and then when they go, listen, we got to fucking go to Iraq and fight a war to make sure this doesn't happen to you. You go, yeah, sure, dude. Whatever you got to do,
waving their flags,
whatever the fuck you got to do, go fucking fight. And I mean, yeah, they told the American people that Saddam Hussein was in bed with bin Laden and that he helped them plan it. And he was giving the Al-Qaeda guys refuge in Iraq. All of this is bullshit. None of it was even kind of true. But at the time, everyone was like, look, I'm scared and we're doing this. And the same thing, with the COVID shit, that they got everyone so scared of this virus that like they convinced so many people to not even question as their government took away freedoms that 2 months earlier, 1 month earlier, 3 weeks earlier, you would have thought it was insane. I mean, it would have been like if someone had come along, if me or you had come along in February of 2020 and said, the government's going to make it illegal for you to have a funeral for your dad. They're going to make you, they're going to make you FaceTime your dad as he dies. You can't even go and like sit with him. You'd have gone, that is the most nutty conspiracy ever. You're insane to think the government would ever do that. And then when they did it, they went, well, we got to do it. Like they just people buy in, man. And they buy, and that's the thing that's really fucking troubling is that it's unbelievable. Even 20 years after the war in Iraq, and after the financial crisis, and after the rise of Donald Trump and all this shit and distrust in institutions being so high, they still got people to buy into that shit.
They don't, like, I've said this many times, you would think most old people would be fucking geniuses, like Shaolin monks. Like,
yeah, right.
You know, after all the lies they've lived through, you would think all old people wouldn't trust the government at all. We're going to play that little CNN undercover Project Veritas. This is them pushing climate change. Watch.
They've already announced in our office that once the public will be open to it, we're going to start focusing mainly on climate like global warming, and so our next thing is going to be for climate change awareness.
Once again today, much of the world will be hit with scorching temperatures, yet more evidence of the climate crisis.
I hate to parse words right now. This is an emergency. The planet is on fire.
When you have runways melting, planes can't take off because a runway is melting.
Climate change is real.
We cannot afford to sleep on the threat and the potential consequences.
Cities around the world sweltering in record high temperatures, leading to fires and life-threatening conditions.
The biggest existential threat in many ways is climate change.
What does that look like?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I have a feeling it's just going to be like constantly showing videos of like decline in ice and weather warming up and like the effects it's having on the economy.
Above normal temperatures have alarmed scientists in northern Greenland, where ice is melting at an unusually high rate.
That's the sound of rapid melting, triggered by a few days of unusually warm temperatures.
And it's also deeply concerning for scientists.
Climate change means jobs, and how much lives and blood and sweat and tears have to be spilled before we all get there.
So, climate change overload.
Be prepared, it's coming.
Yep.
I mean, how do you, like we were just talking, when you see that right there in your fucking face, Exhibit A, Your Honor, once you see that, that should change everything if you're on the fence about conspiracy theories. Like that right there, oh man.
And all they got to do is James O'Keefe and the Project Veritas, their whole thing, I believe, is they just get like some cute chick to like take out like the CNN guys. And they're like,
slip a little MDMA in their drink.
So tell me about like what you do. I bet it's really cool what you do. And they're just like, all right, let me tell you.
You know how, I don't know if you know anything about ecstasy, MDMA, or however you say it. The story is that the CIA originally tried to use it as like some kind of truth serum for political prisoners or whatever, something like that. I mean, you heard that, right?
No, I haven't heard that. I mean, I know they experimented a bunch with all types of hallucinogens.
The timeline is the CIA developed it as a truth serum, and then then it made its way into psychiatric the psychiatric field, and then they started giving it to married couples with problems, and then it was used as a way to get people back together, reignite their love, and there was so much success with it, and then people started partying with it, and they started going to fucking clubs and and you know. One thing about it, I've done it a few times back in my 20s. You do tell the truth. If you're on ecstasy and you're like with a friend you grew up with, you'd start going, dude, we don't hang out that much no more. Like, why do we need to fucking start playing football again? You just come up with the dumbest shit.
Yeah, no, there's something about that. Fucking with your levels will really awaken some shit inside of you. I don't know, man. I don't know. I know that the government certainly was fucking with a lot of hallucinogens to try to see what they could do with it and how they could use it on people and stuff like that. So who the fuck knows, man?
But look at CNN just pushing that climate change. Fuck. It's so obvious that their whole mission is propaganda. They are a psychological operation. That's what it's, I mean, they're just lying through their fucking teeth.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of obvious too that like there's so many things that, look, if they were news, like if any of these like organizations were journalists, there's so many stories that they would cover that they don't. You know, like they would have, you would have seen at least, let's say CNN was like a journalistic organization. And even let's say they really believed in the COVID vaccine. Like they were like, look, this vaccine is absolutely, you know, like legit and everyone should get it. They still would have been running stories about like, how much profits are these pharmaceutical companies making off these mandates?
Yeah.
Wait, you know what I mean? Like, well, okay, well, even if we need this vaccine, why, you know, like the government's buying it from them and the taxpayers forced to pay for it. And they're not charging anyone for it. And then they're completely shielded from liability. What's going on here? Is there any corruption? You know, like at least that would have been a story. Dude. They never even talk about it. They don't even pretend to cover it and then not. And then, you know, you have these things all the time. Like I remember I was talking about this with Rogan, I think last time I was on, or one of the last times I was on, where it's like, you know, like you have these like think tanks in Washington, D.C. that are funded by weapons companies that then lobby politicians for wars. And like it never comes up. Like no mainstream like fucking media publication ever, Fox News, CNN, New York Times, Washington Post, none of them ever just go like, well, wait a minute. That's fucked up. Like this think tank is lobbying for war, but the people who are funding them make money off war. So this is a conflict of interest. Maybe they shouldn't be allowed to lobby for this next war. And so if they were journalists at all, you know there'd be stories about this because that's such a great story. Like all the shit I just mentioned, these are great stories. Fucking run with this. There you go. There's your exclusive, you know, like, but they don't.
Journalists that aren't part of the mainstream media cover it. There's a lot of
and that's how you know, and that's how you know they're actually journalists. You know what I mean? Like that's like the giveaway right there. But that's the beauty. That's the beauty of the world we live in today. There are a lot of people who are talking about all of this shit. You just got to know where to find them. There is a lot of fake news online, but there's also like some real shit there.
Yeah. But yeah, you never know what you're getting on the internet. That's for sure. But because the deep state's all over the internet too. So,
well, yeah.
But you do know that 99.99999% of TV is complete deep state, right?
Yeah.
They had so much time to take control of everything. I don't know when they really took hold. I don't know. I mean, I know JFK, maybe he really was good. And then Lyndon B. Johnson, if you look into all that, you're like, damn, was Lyndon B. Johnson, was he a key piece in the assassination? You start looking into that and you're going, damn, Lyndon B. Johnson. And so according to what I've seen, he's for sure deep state. Maybe that's when they really took over, or maybe they had it already down in World War I, World War II. I don't know when the White House was totally controlled. But it seemed like JFK, he was legit. They killed him.
I think it was steps, you know, and I think that Kennedy believed he was the president of the United States. You know, It's not that they didn't have control of a lot of things, but I think he still felt like, no, I'm the president. And
did you ever hear that
they had to let him know he wasn't. Like, no, you're not.
Did you ever, because his dad seemed like he had deep state connections. His dad, Like it seemed like they
well,
were
you don't get. I mean,
mobby. You know what I mean? They were kind of mobby.
It's very rare you're going to get to that level without having anyone around you who has connections to very powerful people. So that in itself doesn't prove that you're like a tool of the you know what I mean of the system. So I think that like my thought on it is, and I don't know, this is all kind of speculating, but my thought on it is that like, yeah, Jack Kennedy was basically, he was acceptable to enough of the establishment because they knew who his family was, they knew who he was, and were kind of like, okay. And then once he got into office, he was like, no, I'm the president now. So he could tell the CIA, no, fuck you, we're not doing the Bay of Pigs. What do you mean you launched it without telling me? No, fuck you, I'm pulling it back. And he's like, I'm the fucking president. I'll make this decision. And he did that enough. Where they were like, actually, dude, you're not the president and you're not supposed to fucking be doing that. And so there's just these examples, I think, of people where like, even if they are to some degree in the matrix, they might also only have one foot in and then go, I think I'm going to do it a different way. And then they have to be, like informed or, not informed, but, a message has to be sent that like, oh no, you don't actually have the option to pull one foot out. You have to be all in on this. And with Kennedy, it's like, they didn't fucking poison his food. They didn't make it like a thing where it's like, oh, the president dropped dead, we don't know why. They let it be known. They made an example out of him. You know what's weird? We'll blow the president's brain out on national television in front of everybody and get away with it.
But do you know that's not how it happened? Do you know that that the Zapruder film didn't come out until 10 years, a decade after his assassination? There was no footage of it. There was zero footage.
At the time, really? When was the first? Oh, was it 10 years later that it came out? Is that true? Wow.
Crazy, right?
Yeah, that is pretty crazy.
Crazy that shit came out 10 fucking years later. And then when you watch it, when the bullet hits his head, dude, it looks, there's a big, his whole head is a big purple blob. It's a blob on his head. The bullet hits and his whole head is a blob. Like it's like his half, like a quarter of his head got blown off. Like it got blown off. But then they show the autopsy pictures and he's laying on the gurney or whatever it is. And he's got a bullet hole in his head. It's just a bullet hole. And his his face and his head are intact.
Yeah, it's a lot of weird shit going on with there. Yeah, I don't even know I don't even know what the fucking deal with that is.
But my point
story, I know the official story doesn't fucking add up for shit.
Totally. My point is, I heard this once, never heard it again. Some video somewhere, it's lost. But I heard that JFK flipped because he had like a son die. Like he had a son that was one or two that died and he flipped. And then from that point on, he decided to go out guns a-blazing, him and his brother, Robert F. Kennedy. And they just knew, like they knew they were going to get killed. Like they were just going to go out guns a-blazing. That's one theory. I don't know if I believe it, but that's one theory. I don't even know if he had a son that died. That could be total bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard that, but I do think that he had real tensions with the CIA.
He did bang a lot of chicks, though. He did bang a lot of chicks.
Well, they had dirt on him. I know the FBI had a lot of fucking dirt on him.
The official story
had fucking The
official story, I don't know if this is real. This could be totally fake. But I think he was president 11 months, right? It was like really short, correct?
Well, he won no, I think it was more than that. I think it was a few years. He won in 1960, I think, right? And he got killed in what, 62, 63? You know what? I'd actually have to double check this.
The numbers, the FBI report said that he had at least one affair with a different chick once a month. That was like the report. It could be totally bullshit. Maybe he didn't have any affairs with any chicks. Maybe that was all just a distraction or something.
Yeah, it was like 3 years in office or something like that. But that's a lot of chicks. If that's true. I don't know.
He averaged one, something like that. which could be total bullshit. But
Yeah, who knows?
But damn, like, I mean, it's kind of accepted that he had an affair with Marilyn Monroe, right?
Yep, that's pretty accepted.
Isn't that crazy? It's fucking crazy. That's like
very bizarre.
Obama. That's like Obama having an affair with, Justin Bieber or some shit. You know what I mean?
I like you
crazy,
made Obama's a gay affair. Yeah, I agree. Yes, it is very strange. It's very hard to believe.
It's crazy, right?
But back then, it wasn't like that shit was. It was a different world, man. Like that shit did not get
Marilyn
publicized.
Monroe. Damn, I would love to know the real story on her, because everything we're getting on Marilyn Monroe, I bet it's bullshit. What was her story? She had to be so deep. She had to be banging a lot of deep state dick. You know what I mean? And they were like, this bitch knows too much. We got to fucking get rid of her. How easy was it to get rid of Marilyn Monroe? I believe she was murdered. I don't believe, I believe she knew too much shit. She banged too many deep state dicks.
Maybe that's it. I think it's interesting to just like wonder about like what the real shit was. And man, I would love to know. I share your sentiment on that. I would love to know.
Monroe.
I would love to know what Kennedy's beef actually was with this, like the CIA, and what actually like really pissed people off when they decided this guy's got to go. I'd love to know about Nixon. What was the real reason why the entire establishment turned against Nixon? And obviously, I don't think like Watergate was none of it, but there's no way that was the whole thing.
Yeah, they have another
like there was
story.
like some more shit that went down there, and I've heard a lot of the conspiracies on it. I don't know like what's right and what's not right, but I do know that this motherfucker won his re-election campaign. He won 49 states. It's the most like landslide victory of any president ever. And then a year and a half or whatever it was later, he's removed from office. Like he won over the American people, and then they were like, nope, gotcha, you're out of here. You can't be the fucking leader anymore. And it's just like all that shit is there. And then he gets remembered as being the most corrupt president.
Yeah.
It's just interesting the way these fucking things happen, you know?
Did you do you know what Operation 40 is?
I don't think so.
Operation 40 was a group of 40 international assassins put together by the CIA to kill Fidel Castro. And guess who put those 40 assassins together in a unit?
Who?
Richard Nixon.
Okay.
Yeah, he was involved in some shit, dude.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, Operation 40. Dude, Operation 40, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's legit. There was like a bunch of people put international assassins trained to kill Fidel Castro, and a lot of them were Cuban. And
did you ever hear that? I don't even know if it's a real quote or not, but it's attributed to him. But it was like he said, if surviving assassination attempts were an Olympic sport, I'd be the all-time record holder in gold medals.
Yeah,
it was a Fidel Castro quote. They tried to assassinate him a lot, dude, and he always fucking survived. And he died an old man. He died an old man in Cuba, having ruled the country the whole fucking time, which is pretty incredible.
90 miles off the coast of Florida.
90 miles off the coast of the biggest, most powerful government in the history of the world, and being their number one enemy, and fucking survived the whole time.
And not only that, but Guantanamo Bay, which is a U.S. military base, is in Cuba on that island, 90 miles off the coast of Florida. They got a military base that's owned by the United States. So they hang out in Cuba all the goddamn time, and Cuba can't do shit. They can't do shit. How crazy is that? And you know what they do? Every day, I don't know if they still do it, but I saw this documentary, and it was from a U.S. point of view. And they're interviewing like one of the guys that's in charge of this Guantanamo Bay. And I'm sure this was like in the late 90s, 2000s. But he's talking about how every day they dive bomb with jets. They dive bomb over Havana. And they get close and then boom, and they come up. He said they do that every day just to get them used to it. So when they really they have to drop some shit on them, they'll never see it coming. That's what they said in this documentary. They just condition them. So then they just ignore it after a while. And then when they have to strike, that's what I think chemtrails probably are. Chemtrails probably just to get us used to all these lines in the sky. So when they have to really drop something, no one's going to know where it's coming. They're going to be blaming this virus. Oh, he sneezed on me. It's this. Oh my God, he's contagious. Look at his skin. It's all, but meanwhile, no one notices the lines in the sky. That's a psychological operation. Because chemtrails, there's people that don't pay attention. That's a psychological operation. They got you used to all these lines. Dude, it's insane. Once you start paying attention, you're like, oh shit. This was supposed to be a clear day. No clouds at all in the sky. And military airplane right over your fucking head while you're on the 405. They go all over, and then those lines spread out and they cover the whole sky. And it seems like it's hazy and cloudy, but they're all artificial clouds. Happens all the goddamn time. People go, oh no, that's just, you're by an airport. That's just a regular contrail. That's a contrail. Contrails are legit, but they disappear in 30 seconds. They disappear.
Right.
These don't disappear. There's a fucking difference. And I've been on planes almost every weekend the last 20 years. I know the highway over LAX. They always land coming in from the east. They line up. And when they take off, sometimes they take off over the ocean into the beach. And sometimes in windy conditions, they reverse it. You have to go out to the ocean and then land coming the other way. It's just one way. So these planes, I know where these planes are coming from. These aren't commercial airlines. These are like some unmarked military jets going up over your head. They do it all the time. And you just got to pay attention. And now, since 2016, John Brennan, the most untrustworthy CIA director of all time. I'm sure that was worse than him, but he's pretty bad. I mean,
he's pretty bad. Yeah, I don't know about most untrustworthy CIA director is like quite a title. So I don't know if he takes that, but he was pretty goddamn awful. And he was on TV 2 weeks before, maybe even less, a week, 2 weeks before Robert Mueller released the report on Trump-Russia collusion.
Was he on CNN just
and he was
bullshitting?
I think it was MSNBC, and he said that you're going to see the Trump family let out of the White House in handcuffs in a week. He goes, you're going to wait. He's about to drop indictments against all of them. And there's like, well, we have the former head of the CIA telling us this is going to happen. And just none of it happened. It's just all just pure propagandist, like just telling people whatever, get them worked up. It's just all playing this fucking, this role. It's very bizarre.
Before we go, your prediction, the Great Awakening or the Great Reset? What's gonna win in the end?
Well, I mean, dude, I got 2 little kids, so I feel like I don't have the option to like be a pessimist about all of this shit. Like I gotta like, you know what I mean? It's like, I believe in the Great Awakening, and I believe that like human beings, for as much bad as there is around the world, and as much shit as there is to be, like upset about, I like my grandfather was a Jew in Nazi Germany. And he escaped the country, got out in 1938. The rest of his family all died, and he got out and he came on a boat to come to America, and he got real sick on the boat. He was like a kid. He was like 17, and he got sick, and he came here. He had nothing, like a very classic immigrant refugee story. Had the clothes on his back, and then he came and he signed up for the war. And he went back to Europe and fought in World War II. Just like had a fucking hard life. But he came back here and ended up having a great life after that, and like had a family, and now I get to have a good life because he did all of that. And so I just go like, for anyone going like, oh, are things going to be bad or good? I just go, you know what? People have been through a lot fucking worse than what we've been through and still maintained optimism, and things have still worked out. So I just choose to be optimistic about the future. And you know what? If it's all going to go bad, I got little kids. I'm going to fight like hell for them to have a fucking good life. But I look around and I go, I see all of these bad things around us, and I see how corrupt the system is and all this shit. But I also see people waking up at an unprecedented rate. And I see like the idea of like I think people being able to get away with lies are becoming more and more difficult. And I think it's only going to become more and more difficult. And I think our ability to communicate with each other is only going to become more and more powerful. And so I think things might get worse before they get better. But ultimately, I'd put all of my chips in on the Great Awakening. And I think that, look, if the world's over anyway, don't bet on the world ending, because even if it ends, then fuck it. Who cares if you won? So bet on the world being saved and being good. That's where I am. I'm an eternal optimist.
That was fucking beautiful, man.
Thank you.
Damn. Yeah. When the scamdemic started, when people would say, how you doing? I'm like, dude, that's a fucking weird ass question right now. It's the end of the fucking world, man. Like, look what's going on. And I didn't think it was the end of the world because of the virus, because I didn't buy that shit for 1 second, dog. I'm in the dirtiest business there is. I'm the opposite of social distancing. We're on the ground fucking on each other. Nobody died. I have 170 schools. Nobody died. Nobody died in Brazilian jiu-jitsu from rolling. And we're doing the most filthy shit. And I talked to Dr. Peter McCullough about that too. And he goes, oh, well, you guys, and he's doing great work with promoting the fact that these jabs are risky. If they weren't so risky, maybe Big Pharma would take some of the liability, but they're like, fuck that. We're not taking no. That's the biggest thing about the scam. The biggest fucking thing about this shit that people barely touch upon is Big Pharma cannot get sued for these jab injuries. Get the fuck out of here. They should be talking about that every fucking day on mainstream media. They don't touch that. That's great. None of this shit would be happening if they were liable. It would just end everything. We wouldn't go through none of this shit. None of this would have happened. The only way we could do this, the only way Big Pharma would do this shit, is if they didn't have any liability. That's the only way they would do it. What are you thinking? So my point is, I was like, damn, I wasn't pessimistic because of this fucking cold. I was pessimistic. I'm like, damn, New World Order making their move. Damn, fuck, how far are they gonna go? They're just coming out and fucking flexing on everybody. There's a virus, motherfucker, get in your house. There's a fucking virus. And if you leave your house, we're gonna fucking throw you in jail, motherfucker. Get in your house. That's what I was worried about. My damn New World Order is fucking emerging, dog. They're making that move. The shit I've been talking about on JRE for the last 10 years, it's happening now. That's what was freaking me out. So I was trying to wake up as many people as possible, but still try to stay alive. You know what I mean? We were doing secret jiu-jitsu. Fuck, we didn't know what was going to happen. It was the end of the fucking world. New World Order coming down. And so it was hard when someone asked me, how are you doing? It's very hard. I'm like, I guess I'm all right. Considering it's the end of the world, I'm doing all right. You know what I mean? Is my business going to fall apart? Is jiu-jitsu going to get crushed from this? How are we going to survive from this? Fuck, everything was going so good with Trump. Shit. Everything, my business was blowing the fuck up during Trump. I had so many gym owners that licensed my name that were just blowing the fuck up. And then boom, damn, we got to shut the fuck down. Shit. But now looking back at everything, we had to go through this. And not only did we have to go this to wake people up, there was no way you're going to wake people up and just say, this could happen if Biden won. Yeah. This could happen. They'd go, shut up, you're crazy. No way could that happen. But we had to walk through it. We have to do this. We might need another lockdown. So when they're talking about another lockdown, I go, let's do another one. Let's do another one, because you know what? People they need to wake up. We can't just, we got to fix this now. We got to fix this now. If we don't fix this now, it's fucking over. We're in China. We're living like China. That's what they want. They want us living like fucking China. Drones everywhere and fucking you can't go nowhere. Everybody on a fucking social credit, vaccine passport. They got those motherfuckers under control, dude. China's under control. China's like just one step down from North Korea. You know, they're right there. I mean, Unless I'm looking at propaganda and it's great in China. Maybe I'm looking at propaganda and go, they got you believing that.
I think there is some of that, to be honest. I mean, but I get your point that I think that sometimes, unfortunately, it's a tragic thing about the human condition, but you have to go through these bad times.
Yeah, so it's
to
a good
wake
time.
people
So
up,
now
to
I
wake
feel
people
good.
up to like
Yeah.
what's really going on.
Yeah. You know, people say, oh, you can't change. If you're comfortable, you can't change. You have to be uncomfortable. And that's exactly what this happened. There was a lot of good things that came from this experience. Man, I appreciate what I have way more than I ever have. Everything in my life, I appreciate it way more. And sometimes you need this shit. I wouldn't have this appreciation if everything was just going as normal. We didn't, you know, we were just doing the 90s and the 2000s when everyone was fully in the matrix. You know, we have to go through this. So now when people ask me, how you doing? I'm like, I'm fucking doing great. And I really am. You know, I'm not saying that bad shit ain't gonna happen. I ain't saying that you know, New World Order ain't gonna win. I don't know. I hope the Great Awakening wins. I hope it does. But now this is the only way. We have to do this. And there's no other way to fix this. If this doesn't fix it, we're China. We're fucking Venezuela. You know, so
yeah.
You know, everyone. Well, anyways, thank you very much, man. I want to have you on again and again. I want to have you as a regular guest. Me and you think on the same lines. You're not flat Earth yet, and maybe one day, but all that other stuff, damn, we're right on point. And you're a funny motherfucker. And you have anything you want to plug?
Oh no, I'm at Comic Dave Smith on Twitter. Part of the Problem is my podcast, so yeah, check all of that out. Legion of Skanks, my comedy podcast. Check all that shit out. But thank you so much, brother. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, man. Have a good night.
You too.
The Jiu-Jitsu Dojo is the ultimate training ground for life. Jiu-Jitsu will accelerate the evolution of your being, your consciousness, your soul. Through this amazing art, you will prove to yourself that you can master anything you set your mind to.
Happy birthday, Eddie Bravo.
I leave for Brazil tomorrow.
Are you the Fear Factor guy?
I'm like 6 pounds over. Time to sweat it out. Just imagine someone that has no idea how different your game is.
I'll tell you what this weekend was, man. It was a culmination point where all your hard work comes to like one great moment in time. You showed that you're a fucking champion, guy who goes against convention. You created your own shit and figured interesting ways to get around problems in jiu-jitsu. And shows you that great things are possible if you work hard, if you dedicate yourself, and you use your creativity, and you push through. Your own human potential just goes up.
My 10th Planet Association has grown rapidly to over 70 academies worldwide, and their curriculums are all synced to 10th Planet headquarters located in downtown Los Angeles. I'm Eddie Bravo. I hope to see you on the mats.
You can tell it's real because it looks so fake.